Hello lazy students, this is just a really quick video of how to solve by factoring. This should not be anything new. Once you see an example of it, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, I remember that we did that in Algebra 1 and also Geometry. So what you're going to want on you, notes in case you want to take any, pen or pencil, and then a calculator to do some simple multiplication. So why can we do this? Well, we can do what's known as a zero product property. So in words, what does that mean? If I have two products of two expressions and it is equal to 0, then one or both of the expressions equal 0. AKA, if A times B equals 0, A has to equal 0 or B has to equal 0. So you have to check for both options. So factoring, if I would have x plus 5 times x plus 2 equal to 0, well, x plus 5 has to equal 0, or x plus 2 has to equal 0. Or, basically, x has to equal -5, or x equals -2. It's actually not too bad to find when you need to solve by factoring. So let's do this first problem here. I have 4x squared plus 22x plus 10 equals 0. Notice it has an equal sign. That is only how you will be able to solve. Do not try to solve when you do not have an equal sign. Then it's not an equation. You're not going to solve if it's not an equal sign. So, very first thing I notice is I got to check to make sure, is there a greatest common factor? And it looks like there is. Notice how, guys, there are all even numbers. So let's factor out that 2 first of all. And I will have 2x squared plus 11x plus 10 left behind. So basically I divided them all by, I did not divide the 10 by 2. Silly Marsh. There should be a 5 there. There we go. So now I can just worry about this inside. Let's factor that. Now I'm going to use the AC method because it is a trinomial, 3 terms. So A times C, so 2 times 5, that's 10. So all the numbers that multiply to give me 10, but add together to give me 11. Well, 2 and 5 makes 10, 10 and 1, which adds to give me 11, right? So let's expand that middle term. So I'm going to have 2x squared plus 10x plus 1x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now, here's when we go into grouping, because we have 4 terms now. So let's group these 2 terms together, and then these 2 terms together. So it looks like these 2 terms, I can take a GCF, or divide the GCF of 2x out. So I'm going to put brackets here, so we have kind of a nice show off here. So I'm going to pull out a 2x out of here. If I divide these both by 2x, I'm going to be left with just an x. 5 plus 5. Okay. These two, if I notice, I do not have a actual thing to divide away. But if there is nothing, technically you can still pull out a 1. So we're just going to yank out a 1. There we go. Now I'm going to notice x plus 5 is common within those 2 terms there. So I'm actually going to have for a final answer 2, all the way on the outside, times 2x plus 1, x plus 5 equals 0. So 2x plus 1, x plus 5 equals 0. Now what you're going to do is set each factor equal to 0. So that means this factor, and this factor. So 2 has to equal 0, 2x plus 1 has to equal 0, and x plus 5 has to equal 0. Well, 2 does never equal 0, so we don't have to worry about that factor. It's just kind of an extra piece in there. Let's solve this factor equal to 0. Minus 1, divide by 2. So it looks like x has to equal -1/2, possibly. And also, if I solve this one, x has to also equal -5. So those would be my 2 answers to my quadratic equation, my 2 solutions or roots or x-intercepts once we start to graph them. would be x equals negative 1/2 and x equals negative 5. Let's take a look at another example. So I have 9x minus 8 equals x squared. Notice, guys, it's not equal to 0. That should be a warning. You should never try to factor if you're not equal to 0 first. So let's solve it so it's on standard form, which means x squared, x, no x. So I'm going to move these guys to the other side. Personal preference really, but I love to keep my x squared positive. Okay, keep that in mind. 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 8. I find it makes my life just a little easier while I'm doing my factoring. So I have trinomial again, so I'm going to multiply a times c. I'm going to use my AC method. I'm going to get 8 numbers that make 8. 2 and 4. I need a negative 9. 1 and 8 would give me a positive 9, but if I make them both negative, I will make a negative 9. So if I expand my middle like that, that is now negative 9. Now, guys, remember, if it is a of 1, all you need to do is write your two terms out, just like what you found. This would ultimately turn into this after you would simplify and do your grouping. It's still equal to 0, so if I set both my factors equal to 0, I will get x equals 1 and x equals 8. So that are my two solutions to the quadratic equation known as 9x minus 8 equals x squared. So x can equal 1 or x can equal 8. That would both satisfy that quadratic equation. And that's the end of this video. See you later, Sabers.